I don't have my laptop back yet from the repair shop, so I'm still using my phone to write my manuscript, and for today's session I wrote 79 words. I have finished An Uncommon Story. All three of them are desperate, their great guilt, like poison given to work a great time after, now begins to bite the spirits. I've just been reading from my phone, and I've been reading Carl Jung, Mysterium Coniunctis. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly because I did not learn Latin. But after that, I jumped into the recognitions, and oh my goodness, I freaking love this book. I am 18 pages in, and reading this line by line is just, I know this is gonna be like a Bible type book for me. Other books I consider to be my literary Bibles: Fernanda Pessoa, The Book of Disquiet, Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, Ivan Goncharov's Oblomov, and on the note of Goncharov, I have been saving reading Malinovka Heights for later because I want to read the Frigate Pallada first, which will be released for publication in the UK in December of this year. And I am saving Malinovka Heights, and I've been waiting because I just have a really strong feeling it's going to be so incredible. On a controversial take, I honestly love Goncharov just a little bit more than Tolstoy. And don't get me wrong, I freaking love Anna Karenina. I really do. It's so great. But I don't feel like I could read Tolstoy every year, whereas Goncharov, I really feel like I could read every single year. And also with Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, I truly feel like I could read that every single year. But Anna Karenina, I love so much. I could probably read maybe every few years or so. I'm due to read War and Peace soon. I have plans for that, but I have been warned that it also moves very, very slowly. So I anticipate that that's not going to be something I can reread every single year as well. And this is why I put Goncharov just a little bit above Tolstoy. I've been able to use my husband's laptop today because he is off duty. And for this session, I wrote 126 words. Mayakovsky once said, "Life arises in a completely different context, and you begin to understand the most important things through nonsense." I'm reading from Bowstring. A devil, a born devil, on whose nature nurture can never stick, on whom my pains, humanely taken, all lost, quite lost. I'm going to freeze frame this for my voiceover because I wrote notes and I want to read that to keep my thoughts concise. Basically, I'm doing a digital annotation. So I want to talk about pages 18 and 19 of the recognitions because I feel like it captures what makes it so great as a work of literature. Disclaimer, I have no background studying literature in school. This is just my layman's experience reading and loving books. Okay, so what makes the recognitions brilliant? On pages 18 through 19, Gladys uses the assumptions we make following a traditional mode of thought to catch the reader off guard. The last we know of Guan, for example, is that he is a reverend also, and that he enjoys his booze.
So when we get to the part of Wyatt and his father, who is also a reverend, and Wyatt's father topples, mentioning something offhandedly about the ship, we associate the image of a sailor's drunkenness. And so we think that it is Wyatt's father who is supremely drunk whilst everyone is on land. It's only until we arrive to the second mention of Aunt May on page 19 that we realize they are, all of them, actually on the ship, which is undergoing turbulence. In one paragraph, Gladys transports the reader from the pier to domestic life with a drunken father, to aboard the ship, at sea in storm. And yet, rather than these various settings clashing, like mosaic pieces, the elements blend cohesively by their associative properties. That is the essence of my impressions so far reading the recognitions and not even being a chapter through. For this session, I wrote 90 words, bringing my week's total to 612 words. For today's session, I wrote 228 words.
It is day 90 of my 90-day novel writing challenge. I haven't fully processed everything yet, so my reflections are still pending, but that said, I figured I could talk about some more books in the meantime. I have my tea. I need some extra caffeine today because I have been quite busy. I went to the library today to write up my manuscript so I could use the computers there. And then I browsed around for some books. Before I jump into the books though, I will say loosely that this challenge has been a massive learning experience, and I have learned so much about the writing process, but I will share my reflections when I have them later. I found this at the library, The Possessed by Dostoevsky, and I actually started reading it. I am one chapter through, and surprisingly, I'm actually really enjoying this. I couldn't really get into The Gambler, and I DNF'd that, but this one I have a really strong feeling about that I will get through, because the first chapter is already very interesting. It's not the level of Brothers Karamazov, but it is, I would say, on par with The Idiot, if not maybe, yeah, I would say it's like on par with The Idiot. They're not quite the same experience. I would say The Idiot's a bit more psychological up front, but we shall see how it goes. Another find at the library, Either or by Elif Batuman. So I actually read her version of The Idiot. Her book is titled The Idiot, and it's the first of, I don't know if this is a duology, but this is the sequel. And I read The Idiot last year by her. And the thing is, I enjoyed it. Halfway through, I really enjoyed it, and then it kind of just fell apart for me, but I stuck with it and I finished it. And so I picked this up because it caught my eye just while I was meandering about the library. This caught my eye, and I want to give it a chance because I'm hoping that the sequel will redeem how The Idiot ended for me. So that was my thinking. The main character, Selin, she is older, so hopefully she's wiser and has much more redeeming
ideologies. Let's just put it that way. I don't blame Selin for how things went down between her and her crush. I can't remember his name. In The Idiot, she was young, she was very naive, and I think it's easy to make the assumption that just because someone goes to an Ivy League, they must be smarter than the rest of us, but the author, Elif Batuman, she, I think, was trying to convey that, you know, there's like book smarts, and then there's like people smarts, and there's a difference. Someone can be really, really book smart and be very obtuse about the world and people. And I think that was an underlying message in The Idiot. So hopefully either or will be a bit more redeeming for Selin, the character. Hopefully there will be some strong character development. But also, that said, you know, I think about my college years and, you know, how much did I really grow up between my first year of college, second, third, fourth thereafter, you know. Continuing with library books, I have a DNF, and that is Hardboiled Wonderland and the End of the World by Haruki Murakami. I think this book is very interesting. I think it is well written. Murakami is a great writer. He has great ideas, but the vibe just wasn't for me. It felt a little bit android-like, and therefore more on like that sci-fi end of the spectrum, more than it being really poetic and philosophical. It's insightful and it's interesting, but I wasn't really feeling the sci-fi-esque vibe. So DNFing this. I think maybe another time I could come back to it. I mean, it is really, really interesting, but just the vibe was it felt very sterile. This didn't make me feel richly contemplative because of that more sterile quality to it, with the corridors, technology, the sci-fi elements. To give an analogy, this book felt like a wine aged in a steel barrel, and I am more of the reader who prefers wine aged in oak. Next up, we have some new additions to my library, some thrifted books. First up is the Complete Essays of Montaigne. I'm probably not saying that correctly because I don't speak French, but I'm really excited for this collection. Next up, I have some books that I scored at Goodwill. I found this, and I've actually been wanting a copy of Walden. I read it in high school, but I don't remember any of it, so I want to definitely give this a reread. Then I found this book, The Mother-in-Law Cure, and to me this kind of gives me like Eat, Pray, Love, but less dramatic, more positive and uplifting. Not to say that Eat, Pray, Love was depressing, but it was just more like gritty, I think. But this seems more just more positive and more quaint. This seems to be a lighter fare version of Eat, Pray, Love, and cozier. So I wanted something light. It's also about food, Italian food, and I love Italian food, so I picked this up. Next we have the 9/11 Commission report. And I picked this up because 9/11 was the first major event that I was really conscious of. It happened just as I moved to Virginia, and I was in the 4th grade, so a lot of things had been really turned over in my life at the time. And I'm very curious to read the in-depth story behind it. Okay, then I found this collection, the complete stories of Flannery O'Connor, and it is a pristine book. I have honestly never heard of Flannery O'Connor, but the spot checks I did in this book were very interesting, and it's short stories, so I always like to shake up my reading with different styles and forms. So I'm very interested to get into this book, and it's just so beautiful. Oh my goodness. And then finally, from my Goodwill haul, I picked up this book, The 100 Tales, and this is translated from Old French by Russell Hope Robbins. I totally picked this up at first by the cover. It's so interesting and beautiful. And then I did some spot checks, and I think this will also be an interesting read and very informative and educational in terms of style and wit.